The year is 2013. Indie pop is becoming mainstream, everyone is obsessed with keeping calm and mustaches, Vine is dominant, and TikTok is just a song by Kesha. Back then, online culture didn't feel so omnipresent and was more intimate compared to the endless scrolling we have today. Let's travel back to that for a second. It's 2013. You just got home from school and eagerly head to the computer room to log onto your favorite website, Tumblr.com. As you scroll, you see aestheticized mood boards, edgy lyrics, dirty Converse, tied flannels, and cigarettes.
I need a cigarette.
While navigating GIFs of pale, depressed girls and indie grunge galore, you open a separate YouTube tab and listen to some of the biggest artists out at the moment. You religiously cycle through Lana Del Rey, Grimes, Marina and the Diamonds, and Lorde. Suddenly, you come across a deliciously indie song you've never heard before. It sounds new, but also old, like it's somehow from the 80s, 90s, and 2010s all at the same time. The accompanying music video shows a mysterious artist with a unique style. She has washed out blonde hair, the perfect grunge look, and an indescribable sadness radiating from her eyes that, for some reason, pulls you right in. You find that that song is called Everything Is Embarrassing by the alluring artist Sky Ferreira. Sky Ferreira is one of the most iconic artists to emerge from the Tumblr sad girl renaissance of the 2010s. Her music videos, GIFs, style, and lyrics would become hugely popular alongside other rapidly rising internet stars. However, unlike artists like Lorde and Lana Del Rey, Sky Ferreira's career would ultimately stall and burn out, leaving her legacy to be immortalized around her early works and fans to wonder whatever happened to the original Tumblr it girl. In today's video, we will dive deep into the fascinating but tragic story of the OG queen of Tumblr, Sky Ferreira, and how someone who grew up around Michael Jackson and who became an undeniable symbol of 2010's indie grunge was somehow left behind and never had the truly successful career we were all promised. Sky Tanya Ferreira was born on July 8, 1992 in Venice, Los Angeles, California. She is Native American, Brazilian, and Portuguese. Sky has said that it's ironic she came out so white due to this ancestry, noting, "My dad is Brazilian and Portuguese and my mom is Native American. It's funny because I came out looking like pretty white." Sky Ferreira's mother and father were largely absent from her childhood, and she was instead raised by her grandmother, who had also been Michael Jackson's personal hairstylist for over 30 years. Ferreira has said, "I was raised around him, I always saw him and had holidays with him and stuff like that." Interestingly, she also said that she was unaware of his fame until she was like 13 years old. Sky would show interest in singing as a child, and with Michael Jackson's encouragement, her grandmother eventually enrolled her in singing lessons. During her childhood, Sky was also tragically SA'd twice, first by a neighbor and second by a stranger who had broken into her home. In an interview with Rookie, Ferreira said, "I've never said anything about this publicly because I don't want it to define me, but I feel like it's appropriate to say something here. People feel like it defines you, and it doesn't. It's really unfortunate and disgusting and traumatizing, but it doesn't make you who you are." This experience will go on to heavily influence not just Sky's struggles with depression and anxiety, but also her music and first studio album, Nighttime, My Time, which she has said was one way to process these past events. Sky has said that growing up, she felt older than her peers and that her unconventional upbringing made her feel othered. She hated the cliquish nature of students and would drop out of high school after her sophomore year. As Ferreira continued attending singing lessons, she would also create a MySpace profile where she uploaded demo versions of self-written tracks.
If you bother me, I'll hiss. My claws will dig deep into your skin. My pies are the only thing I'll lick. Only thing you'll taste is my fist. Don't ask me questions, I'll tell you nothing. Don't touch me, don't bug me, you're wasting time.
Shortly before her 15th birthday, she wrote a letter to producers Bloodshy and Avant requesting that they offer her a recording contract, which she says happened, quote, kind of right off the bat after they came across her MySpace profile. After signing with her first record label Parlophone in July 2009, Ferreira subsequently appeared in the music video Pop the Glock, guest starred on Fashion News Live, and starred in the 2010 independent drama film Putty Hill as Jenny.
Have you ever been to a funeral before?
No.
How do you feel about going tomorrow?
I wouldn't say I'm excited. Would it be bad though if I don't cry? I just want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. After this funeral, I just want to go home.
In June 2010, Ferreira appeared on the cover of Jalouse magazine after being featured in Dazed and Confused, Interview, and Purple. At the same time, she began to write and record material for her debut studio album. Following the release of the singles 17, 1, and Obsession, it was announced that her debut album, originally titled Wild at Heart, would be released on January 11, 2011. However, the album was postponed, and an extended play titled As If was announced for release in March by Capitol Records instead. Ferreira was also featured in the ad campaign for Calvin Klein's CK1 fragrance, the 2011 cover of VS Magazine, and the fall ad campaign by Adidas, which showed her growing popularity in the modeling world as well as the music industry. While her debut album was still in the works, Sky announced that her second EP, Ghost, would be released in October 2011. It respectively peaked at numbers 8 and 71 on the US Billboard Top Heatseekers and Alternative Albums component charts of the Billboard 200. The EP featured 5 songs, including Red Lips and Everything is Embarrassing. Everything is Embarrassing would subsequently blow up on YouTube and especially Tumblr, canonizing Sky as a symbol for the indie, sad girl, teenage angst mood of the era, and after its release, you really couldn't avoid seeing her face all over social media. Catherine Isef of Pitchfork called Everything is Embarrassing the track where Ferreira could very well have her breakout moment, complimenting it for beginning with snappy, crisply sung dance pop about long-awaited moments and transitioning into what should be a buoyant chorus. In her debut television performance, Ferreira also performed the track on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon in January 2013. Like with many artists who suddenly blow up one day, it tends to come out of nowhere, and Sky has said she was surprised everyone loved Everything is Embarrassing. That was definitely a turning point. I put Everything is Embarrassing out thinking no one was going to pay attention to it, and suddenly it's on Pitchfork's Best New Music and everyone is like, oh, Everything is Embarrassing. And I was like, really? Because, I mean, it's a great song, but I never really thought that would be the song that everyone would go crazy over. I was so used to nothing ever really going anywhere, so the way I was looking at it was like, I'm just gonna keep putting out stuff until something maybe catches on. But I never really had the intention of things going the way they did. Lana Del Rey would say something similar about the virality of video games and how, if she knew it would blow up, she would have put far more effort into its composition and self-made music video, and Grimes originally disliked the track Genesis and almost never put it on the album Visions. I view this all as another example of trusting the process and how whenever you are feeling unsure or insecure about something, your art, your work, your looks, or your life, just remember there is a lot of love in this world and someone out there is bound to appreciate what you have to offer, even if you can't, at least at first. In the years following the release of the Ghost EP, Sky Ferreira would solidify her niche online and also come to represent the shifting cultural winds of the moment. The online trends of the early 2010s rejected the loud maximalism, materialism, and optimism of the late 2000s. 90s grunge, indie sleaze, angst, and heroin chic were being brought back. Gen Z and millennials began to reject the blind optimism and escapism of the Obama years and instead turned inward, focusing on mental illness, cultural angst, irony, and a heightened sense of self-awareness. Around this time, social media use also blossomed and algorithms were shifting away from purely keeping us connected with our followers and towards negativity-driven engagement, which accelerated a sense of doom and anxiety. I've always said that what we saw in the early 2010s was really a perfect storm coming together. You had a gradual but noticeable decline in living standards since the 80s due to neoliberal policies, which were then greatly accelerated by the, at the time recent, Great Recession. Society was also increasingly socially fragmented due to 5 decades of suburbanization, and social media rapidly accelerated this sense of isolation, which is a problem that has only grown and that we still deal with to this day. This very real decline in living standards, decline in cohesive social bonds and sense of community, mental illness and familial dysfunction in response, combined with a technology that is literally built on making us compare and despair or feel that the world is constantly ending, created the perfect conditions for the sad girl and sad boy archetypes to flourish in the 2010s. Sky Ferreira showed us this flourishing, and also, similar to Lana Del Rey or Grimes, a rising appeal in the anti-celebrity or the artist that seems more niche, unpolished, self-made, or underground. Sky's look, messy, sad, low budget but unapologetic, is what increased her appeal and sense of authenticity online. Meanwhile, the smartphone revolution was also changing everything in society. Thanks to this new technology, we all now have a camera in our pocket, which means we can film whatever we want, whenever we want, and post it for all to see, helping us become more individualistic, turning inward and romantically documenting everything in our lives. These new factors only helped feed this hunger for unapologetically relatable, low-budget, do-it-yourself looking musicians. This observable rise in mental illness, sense of doom, and anxiety for the future also led to a renaissance in the concept of romanticism, which affected how many of us responded to suffering. On one hand, thanks to social media exposure, mental illness was largely freed from previous stigma, and everywhere we looked, people were expressing the importance of addressing their struggles and spreading awareness. On the other hand, we also saw a very real aestheticization of mental illness, and on websites like Tumblr, it kind of felt at times like suffering was a requirement to being a genuine or successful artist. Again, seeing others openly discuss their issues was cathartic for many people who also struggled, but for a brief moment, it did feel like it was trendy to be sad or to romanticize your pain. All these factors helped boost the appeal of someone like Sky Ferreira, helping many young girls who suffered from mental illness and trauma feel seen. But it's also important to note that Sky was never intending to romanticize trauma, but was attempting to be open and honest about it. Even though she would often be grouped in with artists like Lana Del Rey, she wasn't trying to aestheticize suffering, but offer an accurate window into the messy, defensive, unapologetically dark nature of it. The way many underground artists rose to fame on Tumblr in the early 2010s, and the reasons they became so successful, also began to show us something changing within social media itself. Nicholas Menescal of Lifebander writes, "Many consider Tumblr's heyday the beginning of the 2010s. In retrospect, we now understand that this was a transitional period. Social media platforms at this time were slowly shifting away from blogs and embracing the more current styles we have today, like Instagram or Pinterest. Tumblr was somewhere in between these two worlds. It wasn't only a blog, but it also wasn't just a profile and feed to scroll. It was a bit of both. As a Tumblr user, you're essentially in a constant process of curating posts through an endless doom-scrolling style feed. When you come across a post that resonates with you, you have the option to reblog it, or you can simply like it. Your Tumblr blog doesn't necessarily represent your real life like profiles in other media, such as Instagram and Facebook claim to do. The posts on these highly customizable blogs were most often pictures that other people had taken or texts that other users had written. Your Tumblr page was more of a representation of who you aspire to be rather than who you actually were. You see it and you repeat it. You make posts your own. You claim that this picture or style or feeling represents yourself, and so you add it to your own page. Tumblr had that life imitates art appeal, a certain nostalgia that's hard to explain but easy to relate to, especially as a teenager who's still finding out what the world is all about. So in other words, Tumblr again showed us this growing aestheticization and romanticization of our lives that social media and the smartphone allowed us to do. Tumblr helped create this dynamic where it wasn't simply about sharing the life we actually live, but carefully curating the one we wanted while also stylizing it to be artsy and romantic. Sky Ferreira arguably represented this cultural mood more than even her other sad girl contemporaries like Lana Del Rey, because she never went on to see the same success. In other words, she became the niche it girl who stayed niche and mysterious while others went on to become more mainstream. But why did this happen? Why didn't Sky blow up in the same way other artists who got their start on Tumblr did, like Lana Del Rey or The Weeknd? Well, it all has to do with industry control, drug-related controversy, and an artist who cares deeply for their work and refuses to compromise for profit.
So you had dropped out at that point?
Yeah,
Or?
that was like my goal. I was like, because I know I can't leave school without having a job. And I was like, I just hate school so much. It's like being in a room with like 40 kids. No one wants to be there. It's like, it reminds me of like, oh, well, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say jail, but I don't really want to bring
well.
that. Anyways.
Jail is in fact a sensitive subject for Sky.
On September 13th, 2013, Sky Ferreira and boyfriend Zachary Cole Smith were arrested while driving to Basilica Soundscape Festival in upstate New York. A subsequent search found him to be in possession of 42 decks of heroin and a stolen license plate. Ferreira, meanwhile, was found with ecstasy and charged with possession of a controlled substance and resisting arrest. This led to many people labeling her as a junkie, with others even attempting to discredit her work or talent, blaming it on alleged addiction. But I think this suspicion would be misplaced. Like most creatives, Sky was simply a perfectionist and refused to put out anything that she felt didn't resonate or represent her vision. In a 2013 Billboard interview about her debut album, she said, "I'm really proud of my record, which I didn't know could ever be possible. Before, I thought, maybe there's something wrong with me. I thought maybe the songs weren't good, or I couldn't write a good song. Maybe I'm just not capable of making a good record that I'm happy with. Maybe I'll just never be satisfied, because that was kind of always my issue in life. I'm just not satisfied with a lot of things. I mean, I'm not negative, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist in a lot of ways. Like, if I get one note wrong in the show, it can kind of fuck up the whole show for me. I don't show it on stage, but I'll dwell on it for a few hours. I've always kind of been like that since I was a little kid." So you combine all those things and you put it inside the body of a little girl or a teenager who's also very driven and stubborn, and then you put her in front of a bunch of label executives who in their mind just see a blonde girl who can possibly make them money, and if you don't agree with what they say, then all hell breaks loose. But I just wasn't willing to give in, no matter how hard they tried. I'm willing to compromise on some things, but only if it makes sense to me. And I've learned from past experiences when I really didn't want to do something and I did it anyway, it did not work out well. This shows us one of the biggest problems most artists face when getting signed to a label, and it again reflects something I have consistently mentioned in previous videos. First, I think her point about being a perfectionist and finding that as an artist, a lot of what you do often doesn't feel good enough is fascinating from a psychological point of view. I suffer from ADHD and other trauma-related things, and I always wondered just how much my creative perfectionism had nothing really to do at all with my personality or choice, but was just because of a lower baseline of dopamine. Like, when you have less available dopamine in your brain, whether from ADHD, depression, or trauma, it can not only affect motivation, but also your sense of fulfillment. In other words, an artist with healthy levels of dopamine might be able to spend a couple of hours on a song and feel content and proud with it, while another with ADHD or depression never feels that satisfaction, not because their work is objectively bad, but because that dopamine isn't there to offer reward. I know that's a lot of speculation for someone who doesn't know Sky personally, but still, it's like the first thing I always think of when pondering perfectionism and mental health. The second, more obvious thing I thought of was industry control clashing with creative freedom. For many of us who are artists or aspiring entertainers, we tend to think that those in Hollywood have it all, especially if they are a singer, because of how appreciated their craft is. I mean, you're telling me you get to make your own music and then be loved by millions for it? As an artist, one of the biggest goals of making art is to spread it and have other people resonate and appreciate it. So I've always felt that singing was the most successful form of artistry. But as many of us now know, that is mostly an illusion. When an artist releases something, you should always view it as a compromise instead of 100% their creation, a combination of factors that doesn't wholly reflect their actual vision. It is rarely exactly what they had in mind when originally setting out on their creative process, and it is highly influenced by extremely powerful label executives who know what will sell and are risk averse. They don't want to give complete creative control because in a neoliberal capitalist world, creativity is risky and unpredictable. You instead want something more standardized and watered down, modeling off of whatever is already popular to ensure broad success and higher return. Remember, a record deal is not just the label giving these artists millions of dollars for free, but is an investment, and they will inevitably want a return on that investment, meaning a lot of what they end up doing will be controlled by those higher ups. This is why so many people in Hollywood say signing those deals is selling your soul, because these contracts often mean losing agency over everything from what they wear, their hair, the way they act, the music they make, the lyrics they write, the events they go to, the interviews they do, the responses they can give, and anyone who is an artist can see how horrific that would be. Art is reflective of something that could never be truly quantified or controlled by anyone other than the creator themselves. It is a reflection of one's unique lived experience, unimaginably complex inner world, and once you put all these arbitrary restrictions on the process or try to control its creation, the value of that art collapses and the motivation to create it disappears. This is why it takes a very specific type of artist to succeed in that environment, and highly creative, indie, alternative types often struggle due to their refusal to sell out for wider appeal and sales. This is a mindset that Sky Ferreira also shares, and these early conflicts with label executives reveal one reason why she may not have gone on to be as successful as her contemporaries. But then they want me to do 10,000 versions of Everything is Embarrassing. And then what's the point? The magic of that song would be completely gone. You know what I mean? Why try to repeat it? You can't force something like that to happen. That's something that I realize. Something might sound like a hit, but you can't go and be like, this is gonna be a hit. I do want to be successful, but I'm not gonna kill myself over it. I'm just gonna try to do what I like doing the best that I can. I think the quality of something matters more than the quantity of sales. Yeah, it would be great to have a #1 single and be a millionaire, but am I gonna change myself for it? No. After the well-rounded success of Sky's first studio album, Nighttime, My Time in 2013, she announced that she was working on a second album, Masochism. The album would end up getting continually delayed every year since 2015, and Sky would begin venturing more into acting and modeling. In 2018, Sky posted on social media, "I would just like to clarify for some. My silence should not be confused for negligence. I deeply care and put everything I have into my music, including all of my earnings. I won't put out something that I don't stand by or the bare minimum." On December 19th, 2021, Ferreira stated that Masochism would finally be coming out in 2022, but when that never happened due to issues with her label withholding new music and videos, fans got angry. They would launch the Free Sky Ferreira campaign, demanding that the labels allow her to release her new music. In 2023, it became clear that Masochism once again would not be released. In August of 2023, fans of Ferreira purchased a billboard in Times Square claiming that she was being held hostage by her record deal. Sky agreed with the claims made by the billboard, saying in an Instagram story that it was basically true. However, this would lead to Capitol Records officially dropping Sky, and in 2024, she explained that she was officially an independent artist. A Rolling Stone article from 2024 details the transition to independence, writing, "I'm working to try and get some of those songs back, but I'm not getting every single one. It's such a complicated process, and I have to figure out how to do all this shit by myself now. People keep telling me I should just re-record the songs, and it's like, yeah, Taylor Swift can do that because she's a billionaire, but I basically put all the money I've ever made as an artist back into making music. I think most musicians I know generally pay to work. They kept me from putting out new music for 10 years as a way of making me look like I'm incapable of it, like it was my fault that I don't technically own anything I record. I was already dreading the 10-year anniversary of my album because it's sad. I should be able to celebrate something like that because as long as this album has been around, people still care about it. I was catatonic for a few weeks after that email. Not because I was dropped, but just the way it happened. It felt like their way of trying to break my spirit one last time. It's kind of like when someone gets out of prison and they don't know what to do with themselves. And it's similar in that way where you still don't have rights to everything that you did before." I think Sky Ferreira really shows us the paradoxical nature of the fame machine in the entertainment industry in a capitalist world. You would think that the most successful, the most popular, and the singers who are everywhere are the most creative, unique, groundbreaking, but when we look around, that couldn't be further from the truth. What we find instead is that the biggest artists today are often watered down, simplistic, so cookie cutter like that they increasingly feel AI generated. But it is important to point out that this is not a mistake. This dynamic is meticulously manufactured to be that way, while the real creatives, those who refuse to sacrifice their vision for profit or who will only put out their best no matter how long it takes, are often mistreated and blacklisted from ever getting access to the capital that would actually allow their work to truly flourish. Growing up, we were led to feel that being a singer was the ultimate form of artistry. It was the most successful way to make a living from genuine artistic expression. Selling paintings or drawings or sculptures could be fulfilling, but it was also highly unpredictable and unstable. But singing was different. You could create personal, authentic art and reach global levels of appreciation, or so we thought. What we find through the story of Sky Ferreira is that the more you actually are creative, the more you really do care about your work, and the more authentic you become, the more the machine will crush and restrain you until you break and concede or limp away in defeat and become blacklisted. But this ending isn't all that bad. While these labels have immense capital and can truly make or break an artist, they are also unbearably controlling. Sky Ferreira is finally free from that unnecessary control and has even released new music as recent as 2024 as an independent artist. This story of power imbalance in the music industry is not unique, and it's why today, independent artists are the fastest growing type as people continue to crave true authenticity and reject what the mainstream machine keeps trying to shove down our throats.